welcome to a new Retro Core 3 Volume 16, and kicking off this show is Fighting Vipers 2 for the Sega Dreamcast. Now, I was a big fan of Fighting Vipers the original, but how is Fighting Vipers 2? Well, it's got a lovely introduction. Well, for 1998 when it originally came out in the arcades, the introduction was pretty good. By the time it came out on the Sega Saturn in 2001, it looked a little bit dated. Makes you wonder why they ported such an old arcade game to the Dreamcast. They could have ported Toy Fighter. Then again, Toy Fighter's probably not as well known as Fighting Vipers. Oh, how cliche is that?
Fighting Vipers 2.
Okay, so featuring a few different play modes, we'll start off with the arcade mode, and you can see straight away there are more characters than the original Fighting Vipers. Quite a lot of the original characters have made a welcome return to the second game, plus a few new ones. Although I don't really rank the new guys that well, especially this guy with the bike. It seems more of a tosser than anything else, to be honest. Another point about Fighting Vipers 2, which I don't think is as good as the original Fighting Vipers, are the stages. You know, well, the stages are nice and they got some good ideas, but they just seem to lack the polish and the flair that the original game had. I don't know what it is, but they just don't seem to grab the attention as much. Which is this stage, for example. The game does feel a whole lot more balanced than the original did, although I would say that the new characters aren't as balanced as the originals. But one new feature this game does have is the tag mode, where you can select up to 2 players on each team, and there's certainly an awful lot of different rounds you can play in, or fighting areas. But one thing that really lets down the tag mode in Fighting Vipers 2 is the fact that you can't jump in and jump out whenever you want. You know, like on Dead or Alive 2, you want to jump into a round and jump out of a round, you just press the appropriate button. But here on Fighting Vipers 2, you got to wait until you're dead. Yep, that's right. Not really a tag match as such, is it? And you've also got to wait for the screen to fade out to white and load in the next character. Sort of breaks up the momentum of the game, really. So while Fighting Vipers 2 isn't exactly a bad game, it is a little bit dated, and for some reason it just doesn't stand out as well as the original game did. Sega Dreamcast has got many 3D fighters on it, and I think if you're really looking just for one 3D fighter, you want to get yourself Dead or Alive 2 before you even look at this one. But that being said, it's not a terrible game, and it is worth picking up if you're a fan of Fighting Vipers. It's been an awful long time since I've done anything on the PC 98. So here we go with Rusty. And as with many PC 98 games, Rusty has a very, very long introduction, which I'm going to miss out, as it really does drag on. It's quite nice for its age, but we just don't have the time to look at it all. Now, what type of game is Rusty? Well, from this screen you probably think, ah, crap, it's another bloody Japanese text adventure. But you'd be wrong. It's a Castlevania ripoff. Sort of. Castlevania with a woman. Yeah. Now for the PC 98 game, this looks absolutely lovely. It really does look nice. And it's also one of the very few side-scrolling platform games for the system. And you can sort of tell why. You remember early PC platform games? They weren't exactly smooth when it came to scrolling. And apparently, neither was the PC 98 when it came to side-scrolling platformers. But that aside, it does look quite nice. Now the aim of the game is quite simple. You basically progress through the levels, find the keys to open the doors, and whip the crap out of everything in sight. You can run, you can do a sort of dash slidey type thingy, you can climb up ropes, and you can swing from lanterns. Definitely Castlevania inspired. You've also got a special move as well, which I couldn't really figure out how to do. I managed to get out once. I think it was something like push, jump and attack and up. I'm not too sure. There we go. Now you're probably thinking that Rusty looks like a very good game, and it's not too bad, but the thing that really lets it down is the stiffness of the controls. Now you can't really tell from looking at this video, but Rusty does control a bit on the crappy side. She doesn't tend to jump from the ropes the way you'd like, so many times you jump off the rope and just plummet to your death, which can be extremely annoying. Sometimes you'll go to run across a platform and she just won't run, she'll just sort of dawdle across there. And of course, jumping can also be a pain. Yes indeed. If there's one big criticism about this game, it'd have to be the controls. They're just a bit unresponsive. See, the bosses are pretty impressive. Oh, and just like Castlevania, you collect an orb. With a lovely little spin. You get loads of those cutscenes throughout the game. They sort of pop up in between every level. Don't really see them that often on modern Japanese games. Slightly Ghouls and Ghosts inspired, I think. Oh, by the way, just in case you're wondering, a PC 98 is a home computer made by NEC, released for Japan. And it was very popular in Japan. There's hundreds of games for it. Unfortunately, an awful lot of them are adventure games. You know, the ones with lots of text. Oh, we're going cheap with the video in this retro car. Yep, all my batteries are dead on my digital camera, my SLR camera, or my DSLR camera, and my HD video camera. So I'm stuck to using a bloody iPhone 3GS as well, for the video. Anyway, we've got a bit of a special versus today. We're going to take a look at Virtua Racing on all the Sega consoles. And the first Sega console Virtua Racing game to be released was this for the Sega Mega Drive. And it is a very impressive feat indeed. Far more impressive than what you call Stunt Race FX, or Wild Tracks, as it's also known, on the Super Nintendo. That's really slow with a crappy frame rate. This is actually quite fast, and uses the special Sega Virtual Processor. Wow! And as you can see, the cartridge is actually quite different than a standard Mega Drive cartridge, because it's got all those extra processors in it. Lovely stuff. Mind you, I've got to love this Japanese style instruction book and box. Far better than the shitty American one. And I don't actually remember what the PAL version looks like. Okay, and then next we have Virtua Racing for the Sega Saturn. Actually, no, that comes next, doesn't it? After the Mega Drive, we got Virtua Racing Deluxe for the 32X. One of the only decent games on the 32X. And if we look around the back, you can see, oops, if the stupid phone will focus, yep, it looks very, very nice. It's pretty impressive. Features all the tracks from the arcade, just like the Mega Drive version. 2-player split screen, plus a load of bonus features as well. So we'll be taking a look at that. But how much better is that compared to the original Mega Drive version? Well, you'll find out in a minute. And finally, we'll take a look at the Sega Saturn version. Now, you'd expect this to be the ultimate version, but look who made it. Oh shit, Time Warner Interactive. Guaranteed bollocks. Mind you, they did release one good game, and I'm sure you all know which game that is. But taking a look at the back of the box as I drop it, the graphics do look fairly nice. But how does it play? Well, we'll find out about that as well. So let's sit back and first enjoy our Mega Drive, our 32X, and our Sega Saturn games in action simultaneously. Okay, so here we go with the opening presentation to the Sega Mega Drive version of Virtua Racing. So yeah, not bad. It looks like the arcade in a much more basic form, but yeah, you can tell that is Virtua Racing. It's got the arcade's music, and yeah, it's actually the same introduction that you find in the arcade machine. So all around, a pretty good effort. Yep, the arcade machine does that as well, flashes on and off. Okay, here we go with the 32X version, or the Super 32X as it's known in Japan. And straight away you can see it looks a hell of a lot smoother than the Mega Drive version. And again, it is pretty faithful to the arcade's original opening sequence. The screen flash with the VR logo? Yes, it does.
Virtua Racing!
Okay, so both of those versions were made by Sega. Here's the Sega Saturn version, which was made by Time Warner. And straight away you can see it's not the arcade's introduction. Completely different. Thanks a lot, Time Warner, you stupid fucks. And just look at the car. Look at that red car there, what's it doing? Going nuts. And also you notice the music just fades out before the introduction does. Yep, Time Warner couldn't even bother getting the auto tracks right. Okay, so let's take a look at all three versions running together. We've got the Sega Saturn up at the top, made by Time Warner, and we've got Super 32X down in the bottom left and the Mega Drive in the bottom right. Now, straight away you can see that the Sega Saturn version does look better, mainly due to the higher polygon count, and there's also some light sourcing and shading on the polygons, which the Mega Drive doesn't have, and the 32X, I should say, has very little of. But what you can't tell from these videos is that the Mega Drive and the 32X versions of the game play really well. They do control pretty much like the arcade machine, whereas the Sega Saturn version, as you can see by the amount of times I'm going off the track, handles like a sack of shit. It doesn't handle anything at all like the arcade version. The handling's bloody awful. By the way, the sound you're hearing is coming from the Super 32X version of the game. You'll also notice that the time limit on the Sega Saturn version is a lot more higher than it is on the two Sega made games. And also the rev counter goes to 15, whereas on the Sega made games, the Super 32X and Mega Drive versions, it goes to 15, so it goes to 16. Why is that? Okay, so let's see what each version looks like with a high-up view. That way you can see which version has the most pop-up. Okay, well the Mega Drive version does have quite a bit of pop-up, but you know, it is the weaker of the three machines. But it's not that bad. In fact, it's coping quite well compared to the 32X there next to it. Unfortunately, I've crashed that many times on the Sega Saturn version, you can't really see because I'm not up to that position in the track. 32X version, I'd say overall does look the best. It does look a lot smoother. The Sega Saturn version seems to bank the track all over the place. Also, it does have some pretty horrendous pop-up. And it does drop frames quite a lot. Oh, it's that time of the month. Shite time. Oh yes, we got some good shite for you this week. This is XDR. Well, yeah, I'm pretty much speechless now. Is that really a Mega Drive game? Supposed to be. Looks a bit shit. Yes, this is one of the more shittier shoot-em-ups on the Mega Drive. Now, not just because it looks shit, but because it's basically shit in all respects. Now, see, we've got this big mountain here, which looks very familiar to the volcanoes from Gradius. And see, the enemy just flew into it and flew right out of it. Now, if I touch the mountain, I fucking die. Now, I will give one good thing to XDR, and that's the enemies, the bosses. Just look how big that is. That is pretty impressive, and it's definitely Gradius influenced. In fact, there's an awful lot of things in this game which are Gradius influenced. But yeah, just look at that. Hang on a minute. What the f... Are they meant to be like explosions? It sounded like someone doing bloody silent but deadly farts. Bloody awful. So yeah, as you've gathered, this game looks bloody shit. Not only does it look shit, it sounds shit. In fact, the stage 4 music is actually the same music used for the title screen. And look at that. That ship doesn't look out of place, right? Muddy looking backgrounds and bloody brightly coloured spaceships. Yeah. Playability wise, well, yeah, the game is a bit of a stinker there as well. Basically, if you don't power up your ship, you're going to be dead instantly because it does have quite a pretty high difficulty level setting. But the weird thing is, if you power up your ship in time, the game is a complete piss take. It's like really, really easy. You can just walk right through the game. Get yourself a shield, no problem. Oh, hang on, I'm sort of like not following the plot here. Hang on. So we were in a modern city, then we were in a cave, fair enough, but now we're in bloody ancient Greece? With tanks? Oh man, I just don't get this game. Yeah, so to sum it up, XDR sounds shit, looks shit, and it's got a fucking cheating difficulty level setting. Enemies can drive per se. Enemies can fly through background objects, you can't. Collision detection is also bloody awful. Many a time you'll be nowhere near a bullet, but you'll get hit. The only thing going for this game are the bosses. But just listen to when you kill them. Oh, we gotta go the girl. Ooh, she's pretty well balanced, isn't she? What you expect? Japanese design. Yes, this is another walk-along beat-em-up and one of the most obscure ones for the Super Famicom. In fact, it's so obscure, most people don't even know about it. But that's okay, because it's not that good either. In my opinion, the only beat-em-up worth owning on the Super Famicom, if you really want to spend a lot of money, is Undercover Cops. That is pretty good. Sounds good, looks good, and it's pretty faithful to the arcade machine. And it's 2 players at once. What the hell? We're doing some sort of pose there. Okay, yeah, we saw your ass. So I'll just call this Gourmet. It's much easier than saying the full title. So in Gourmet, you can play as a 1-player or a 2-player game. But if you're playing as a 1-player, you pick up these little clone characters which aid you in your battle. A nice little twist. Gives you the 2-player arcade feeling, and the AI control of the actual other player isn't that bad actually. It's pretty good, and it does take out quite a few enemies for you. Throughout the levels, you'll see that enemies drop various fruits, vegetables, bits of meat, and so on. Hence the title, Gourmet. So the food items that you collect throughout the game are used once you beat the end of level boss to make you a lovely slap-up meal. Yeah, I don't really get it either. Now one thing that does stand out in this game is the quirkiness and sort of the eroticness of the characters. As you can see from our leading lady here, she's quite erotically dressed for the late 90s beat 'em up on a 16-bit console. We'll just get a load of that boss which we just beat the crap out of. What the hell was that? So here we go, we've got a list of all the items which we've selected, or which we collected throughout the level. We mix them together and this guy here makes us some dinner. And we scoff it down. Salad. Life plus 27. Lovely. Okay, we'll just get our clone character. Thank you. Yeah, have you seen these guys? They blow jets out of their noses. Nuts. They got like little tiny guys on top of them controlling them. It's just weird. As you can see, the game does look quite pretty, but to be honest, it is extremely dull to play. It's one of the most dull 2D beam-ups I've actually played on the Super Famicom, which is a great shame because it's got lovely big sprites, decent looking graphics, and the variety of moves isn't too bad either. You know, you got your dashes, you've got some basic combinations in there as well, and you know, you've got interesting bosses to beat up, but unfortunately the whole thing just doesn't flow together. It's pretty boring. And another bad thing is because it's quite an obscure game, it costs a lot of money. But if you do manage to find it cheap, maybe it's worth picking up. But if you want to pay the going price, which is roughly around about 11 to 12,000 yen, well, I'd certainly pass.